Good day, ladies and gentlemen. This is Daniel Umstead, host of the RNG radio show. I got another multifamily investor. This is starting to become a trend. I might have to switch up the name, but I got the one and only Tucker Kimbrough on the RNG radio show to discuss what he's been currently doing in the multifamily real estate industry. Tucker, how are you doing this morning, my man?
I'm doing great, man. Doing real good.
Awesome. So I really just appreciate you coming on. And for those folks that don't know, I want to run through his bio real quick before we get into some key points. So Tucker Kimbrough is the CEO of Summit Direct Capital, a commercial real estate fund. He started investing in short-term rentals in Montana in 2020. This is 2 years ago, folks, when he co-founded Western Reed Cedar at Flathead Lake, Montana. Following the success of Western Red Cedar, Tucker focused on moving operations to Yellowstone National Park, where he co-founded Montana Resort Investment Group. Tucker excels at streamlining process and creative problem solving in multifamily real estate. He specializes in capital raising and financing, as well as, and this is just an honor having you on the show. Tucker is also an active duty officer in the United States Marine Corps. So, ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Tucker Kimbrough. Thank you again, man. Really appreciate you just taking the time. I know active duty, they just don't have a set time like a standard 9 to 5 to say, hey, yeah, anything outside of 9 to 5, feel free to do whatever. So thank you again so much. How are you doing this morning, man?
I'm doing good. This is one of the first things I was starting my morning with, so it's kind of a cool, little jump start.
Awesome. So hopping right into it, man. Want to know, like, with your journey that you got started with this, what was going through your mind? Like tell me this story. Like, this is talking about like 2 years ago, you getting started. What led you to real estate in the first place, man?
Right. So at the time, when I graduated from college, I was a part of the COVID class. So there was a lot of uncertainty on what my career was going to look like. I basically, everything stopped in March. I graduated from college in May, and I commissioned as an officer and was put with all the other college graduates of 2020 on what they call casual status. And so what that meant was I retained my rank, but I didn't have a duty station or really any responsibilities at all. I also wasn't paid. So I took that opportunity to kind of do something I'd always wanted to do. I moved out to the West and taught skiing and snowboarding, which it doesn't pay well, but it was a heck of a lot of fun. While I was doing that, I moved to Big Sky, Montana, of course. I met a lot of people that did Airbnbs, and most of these people are 30s, 40s, but I thought it was really interesting. And so I spent a lot of time, networking with those people. I didn't even really realize I was networking at first. I just kind of got into those circles. And then I started listening to Bigger Pockets because one of them mentioned Bigger Pockets to me. And then I started to realize, like, wait a minute, there's got to be some way that I can get involved in Airbnb. And so I started working with them. Hey, I'm super young, so I've got a lot of time on my hands and I can work harder than any of you. And that's really what it ended up being, kind of reinvented the wheel on how to put out offers on real estate because it was the 2020 going into 2021 market. So it's very crazy, but that was the first real estate market I'd ever seen. So I just thought that's how it was. So I was competing with, people I really had no business competing with, failed a lot. And then finally kept, pivoting my strategy until eventually after, I think it was 13 offers we put out, finally got one accepted. Finally got the contract to go through the inspection period, and then we closed. And really, I think a lot of people say the first deal matters. I'd say it's definitely true. And my first deal was a very multifaceted, it was almost a syndication without us even knowing it, if that makes sense, because of the two-phased approach that we took.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Awesome. Awesome. Man, that's incredible. I mean, 2 years in the game and you hear like countless offers, but to actually put a number on it, 13 to get to where you're at right now, that's incredible. Are you able to share like any results from the deal that you were able to secure on?
Yeah, absolutely. So we essentially bought a $500,000 lot with two houses on it. It was subdivided, and one of the second property was more or less what you'd say is throwaway. It just kind of got tied into the deal. We didn't want it at the time. It came with a Section 8 tenant with a lot of problems, and it was useless. I mean, the house was dilapidated, completely falling apart. Like it might well has not even been there. But we were able to raise funds and do an entire restoration on the house. I mean, top to bottom. And what that did was create a bunch of equity in the property that, obviously wasn't there because all of a sudden now there's two rentable houses. Well, the first one we stuck on Airbnb almost immediately, and it was successful, but it wasn't killing it. I mean, it was making a little over 5 grand a month at first. I mean, it was just kind of, steady, stable investment. Then we will launch the second one, and then retook all the photos on the whole property, and we were doing July, we did $20,000 on Airbnb between the two of them.
Wow.
Um,
And this is July of this year?
yes, sir.
Wow. That's awesome, man.
And that
Awesome.
was when I really realized, like, oh my goodness, you can do something with this. So we got the property appraised and then took 70% of the equity out, paid off all our investors, paid ourselves back for the acquisition. And then that was the proof of concept to go forth, and really go into the larger commercial space with a little bit of, hey, I've done this in this area before. So
That's incredible, man. I really appreciate that breakdown because a lot of people, get started in this or hear of success stories like this, but just don't know the details. So, understanding the process, starting at one point to get you to the next. So that means a lot. So I appreciate that. And you talked about value before, adding value, saying that you're the hardest worker at the whole team. Can you go over it as far as, value add strategy in commercial real estate and how it allows you to pivot?
yeah, so I'll start by saying I had time, I don't have time now, right? Like active duty in my career has been interesting in that there's gray space, white space, if you will, where I can exploit that, essentially just using my free time wisely to kind of, hey, I can make these phone calls at this time, or I can talk to these individuals this time, and just kind of scheduling everything out in a calendar like we're doing right now. Because I mean, active duty responsibilities have got to come first. So, and
Right.
I knew that from the beginning. So I was able to kind of say, hey, like I'm gonna work really, really hard for like this period, but then this date is when I'm gonna be busy and I'm only gonna be available here, here, and here. And people respect that, right? Because you're literally telling them, months of what your availability is gonna look like. But to speak on the other part of that, pivoting in multifamily real estate, I mean, any business plan that you make in general, like, we came up with 5 or 6 different, not full level architectural, but just kind of overall business plans for how we were gonna build a bunch of cabins at one point, and then we were gonna build a bunch of A-frames, and then we were gonna build a hotel, all these different things, until we realized the easiest thing to do with this property is just subdivide the 5 acres into 5 lots over a period of 3 years and build a total of 5 houses. So there's 2 there now, build 3 additional. That just made the most sense for the area. And then it would be a sale instead of a retention on Airbnb. that we would 1031 into a more of a cash flow Airbnb type business, if that makes sense.
No, no,
So
no. Yeah, definitely.
yeah, and pivoting, just, I mean, changing our strategy sometimes day by day. I remember there's a company called Den A-Frames. They do a phenomenal job sourcing the materials for A-frames, but they also do a phenomenal job business advising. And after kind of working with us for a couple weeks, they kind of realized, hey, this property location probably isn't the best for short-term rental. It's probably best for, full-term residential. And getting that feedback, we were able to say like, okay, so we'll just move totally away from doing short-term rental here long-term
Right.
and set this place up residential. And you just do that, like, okay, we'll just, move into
Flip the
something
switch.
else. We weren't committed, right? Like, if you want to rent something short term, you got to set it up for short term. But if you want to rent it long term, I mean, as long as there's no future bookings on it, you can just do that, right? Um, you know, just whatever works best in the scenario.
Wow. No, I appreciate that. And there's types of investors that are out there, but before I get into that, you talk about a hold period, if you will, of like 3 years, 5 years, as far as getting it set up. What type of hold period best fits your financial goals?
So typically on the commercial side, a hold periods are weird. It's 3, 5, and 7 is the pattern that I keep seeing on almost every single operation. And then there's some variability there. Sometimes you just meet your goals on the front end. But our goal, we're really on this particular Western Red Cedar, which is my first real estate venture. Um, we're just gonna build one house a year. We've got a local builder, kind of an artisan, right? He takes, it's not like DR Horton where they're just gonna throw the houses up really quickly. He's gonna take some care. Each one of the houses he builds is gonna be a little different, but it kind of fits the whole, mountainy Montana, and we got this local guy building them, right? They're unique assets, and we're selling them. So we're going to be able to attract a buyer that wants, custom built home. As far as supply in the area, there's currently no properties listed below $500,000 in the entire zip code. And there's currently 3 houses on the market overall. One's 880,000, one's 3 million, and one's over 5 million.
Yes.
And that's just, I mean, that's the Flathead Lake, Montana real estate market. Those people been there for 200 years, and they don't go anywhere.
Awesome, awesome. So you're really creating generations, if you will, by doing this and getting these subdivisions set up and houses set up. That's incredible, man. Really incredible. For those that don't know, and I've talked about this prior to between accredited, non-accredited, and even sophisticated investors. Can you give your take on, especially the difference between an accredited investor and sophisticated investor?
Yeah, so there's some speculation that it might change because the policy hasn't been looked at in over a decade. But an accredited investor is an individual who, first of all, fills out the SEC accredited investor form and gets either a financial advisor or financial professional to certify, like basically sign off on their net worth being over $1 million outside of their personal home, or it's over 200,000 for 2 years of W-2 income for a single, and over 300,000 of W-2 income over 2 years for like 2 consecutive years for married. And then non-accredited is anyone else. The difference being that if you have what's called a syndication, right? An SEC syndication, there's 2 different ways to go. There's 506B and 506C. 506B, anyone can invest in it that is quote unquote sophisticated, which really just means that they understand the deal, they understand their money, and they can go through all of the forms, understand everything, sign off that they understand what's going on. They were thoroughly explained how the deal's working. And then you're then able to invest in a 506B commercial syndication. 506C, you've got to get, like I said, a financial advisor to sign off. And there's a couple of different websites you could do that through, especially now because syndications have become so popular. And then there's funds as well. I don't really think we need to get into that, but there's Reg A, Reg D. But those are entities that you can invest in that will then go and invest in real estate for you.
Awesome. Awesome. So it's like because the clarity that I want folks to realize as they're listening to this and even watching this is that there's different avenues getting in. Because I remember starting off, all I heard was accredited investors, and it wasn't until later on, maybe a day or two later, learning about being a non-accredited, folks getting together, setting up an LLC, being that accredited investor once all come together. So I want folks to realize, that anybody can get in this game. You're going to have to go through certain channels, certain ways, certain avenues, but anybody can get in this game and take advantage of it. So I appreciate that explanation on there. Why? I mean, I know you talked about the 3 homes in Montana with the market. In addition to that, why is Montana being considered just a booming real estate market right now? What are you currently seeing, especially with, us really in a recession type of economy type now?
Well, recession's an interesting word, and I'll hit on that in a minute. But Montana, first of all, the most popular show on network television right now, other than the new Dragon show, which just came out, for the Game of Thrones folks, which I am not one. But
I am not either.
Yellowstone is the most popular. Kevin Costner's Yellowstone's the most popular show on network television. It's just about farming in Montana, the Montana farming mafia, if you will. And I think it really marks what I've seen personally. I mean, I moved to Montana for the first time at 21. I had never been there before then. And then I get there, start talking to locals, start, living there, and just see an influx of people. I mean, Tom Brady has a house there. Gronk has a house there. A lot of celebrities. Yellowstone National Park, for example, had 4 million visitors in 2020, the COVID year, right? Had 5 million visitors the year after. The year before COVID, it had 4 million. So there's essentially no change to the amount of people that went before and after and during the pandemic. And I mean, those are the trends that we're seeing. I mean, even I went up there in April and basically flying through, I flew from Pensacola, Florida to Bozeman. Ski season was essentially over. It was it's 2 weeks before all the lifts closed and the resort was done for the year. And it was completely packed. I mean, Big Sky's on just an absolute steamroll. It's the biggest ski resort in the country. Every year they add something new. They add a lift. They update something. It's an absolutely crazy place. And then like personally, I love it. I can speak about it forever, obviously. So, I did other deals while that was going on. I did a syndication in Ohio with a group, just as a limited partner. I bought a home in Florida that I just have as a single family rental now. And I looked at other markets. I looked in the Sun Belt. I, looked at doing multifamily in San Antonio, which is a great market. But I realized I was getting away from a particular niche that I had a lot of resources in and a lot of knowledge about. So a couple of months ago, and after, seeing the whole multifamily spectrum and trying to do it in the Sun Belt, I just went back to Montana. I was like, no, this is where I want to do it. Like if I do multifamily syndications, like for real, I want to go and do more in Montana. So again, you've got the whole deal finding continuum. It took a while looking in a new area to get some, broker relationship, lender relationship, all the due diligence professionals that you need to come on site. Once we built those relationships though, it was like, we're going. So getting that whole thing set up, we're now, I can't, I'm not going to speak any deal specifics because it's a 506B, which
Mhm.
the caveat to that is that you can't, like for your listeners, that you can't speak about it publicly, but we're under contract and set to close on December 22nd on the first one of those, at which point I'll be able to, talk about it a little bit more. But yeah, super, super exciting. That really started, I want to say we really refocused on it in July.
That's incredible, man. Incredible. Listen, I know there's a site, some information online. What is the best way folks can get in contact with you if they got any questions, or of course, just want to partner with you on future deals?
Yeah, so Summit Tucker at Summit Direct Capital is my email address. You can go on my LinkedIn, Tucker Kimbrough. I'm very active on LinkedIn. SummitDirectCapital.com is just kind of like the funds website. It's kind of my homepage. You can set up a meeting with me on there. You can sign up for the investor portal, at which point you'll be able to see all the hard numbers that I'm not going to talk about here. And then, yeah, that's really what I use mostly. And, I have people reach out to me all the time. They seem pretty satisfied with the answers that I can give them. So
Awesome, awesome, incredible. And before I let you go, is there any advice or book recommendation that you can offer for folks to either get started or to keep going, on their multifamily real estate journey?
so yes, the book that changed a lot of my outlook is not a real estate book at all. It's called The Happiness Advantage.
Mm,
And really, the premise of the book is that happy people are more productive than people who are not happy people. And it's incredibly accurate. And I've really just taken that approach into all of my business practices. And I'll say the benefits, like, first of all, I feel better, genuinely. Um, used to get really, really stressed out and internalize a lot of real estate issues. And it's natural, right? You go through a lot of different challenges. Little things will happen here and there with contracts. And I realized that just taking a positive approach to everything, every little setback, and just, reminding myself that everything's okay. Um, really, really made a difference. And then, it sounds obvious, like, oh yeah, duh, but when you're in the moment, it's hard to remind yourself, like, hey, we're good.
right.
But ever since I found that book, I found that book last year, but I didn't read it until April, May. Um, and it just kind of like gives you that like peace of mind that, hey, we're good. And that's kind of my plug, yeah, because I don't want to just give, there's plenty of real estate books, and the knowledge for real estate's out there. I'm more worried about people's like persona, their psyche, because if you're just reeling real estate books and just doing syndications, you're gonna drive yourself insane.
Yeah, yeah, because you're always hearing about either the next opportunity or this new method is going to work out, or, and that's the fun thing about real estate. It's this beautiful shiny object, but everybody can get distracted because you learn about different things as you're going through real estate: Airbnb, short-term rentals, long-term rentals, subdivisions. I know we talked about a couple of points here, but if you're not happy in doing any of it, there's going to be no success of it, no matter how much money you're making. So I really appreciate that. Tucker, before I let you go, anything else you'd like to share with the folks?
Not off the top of my head, I'll say for those of you that, have a W-2, I already mentioned it, but that is your primary focus. Like, don't let yourself get so distracted in what you're doing on the side that it takes away from, because for me, like, I promise you, the active duty Marine is my primary focus. And I don't think that I would be successful at all if that wasn't the case. I'd be like over here doing all this stuff. Like, you gotta center in and then build things around it.
Love that, man. Love that. Well, Tucker, thank you again so much. Really appreciate having you on the show, and definitely in the near future, would love to have you come back on so we can talk about some of these deals that you closed on.
Absolutely, brother. Absolutely.
Thank you for tuning in to the RNG Radio Show. Be sure to like and subscribe for more episodes and future content. If you'd like to learn more, visit us at danielumstead.com. Stay blessed, my fellow millionaires.